The film opens 5 years ago in Mosul, Afghanistan, where a drone flies across the sky, monitoring a small village. Below, a man hurriedly runs along a dusty road, alerting the Taliban forces. He rushes to inform an older leader that the U.S. military is approaching, while other members quickly bury an improvised explosive device. Before long, the U.S. military arrives, beginning to scout the area. The entire town falls into silence, but hidden dangers lurk in every house. Pretty Boy, the team's captain, stepped forward and spotted a suspicious man attempting to activate a bomb. Without hesitation, the team quickly surrounded the target. Jake, feeling that everything was happening too slowly, grew impatient and loudly ordered the man to drop his weapon. The warning was emphasized with a threat to open fire if he didn't comply. However, instead of surrendering, the man became agitated, drew a gun in response, forcing the soldiers to take him down. A few minutes later, Colonel Tom Mason, the commanding officer, communicated over the radio, requesting a status report. Jake reported to Mason that an informant had been killed at the location where they found an EE. He requested permission to defuse the bomb, but Mason bluntly refused. Ignoring the superior's orders, Jake decided to take action and successfully disabled the first bomb. However, just moments later, a second bomb unexpectedly detonated, killing the entire team, leaving Jake as the sole survivor of the tragedy. Before he could recover, they fell into an ambush as Taliban forces appeared, attacking from all directions, making the situation even more desperate. Jake sprang to his feet and ran from the scene, while Mason bravely stayed behind to shield him, not leaving his teammate behind. Jake turned back to rejoin the fight and made his way toward Mason. Just as he reached him, an enemy sneaked up from behind, but Mason did in time, saving Jake's life by inches. Now, the once brave soldier had become a civilian burdened with anxiety. Despite having settled into life in the U.S., Jake continued to struggle with the painful memories of the battlefield, the ghost of his past always haunting his mind. Jake is struggling with the aftermath of the war, relying on medication to manage his symptoms. He is making an effort to build a normal life by working at Earl's Auto Repair Shop in Riverside, California. After work, Jake returns home, enjoying warm moments with his family. However, the atmosphere quickly turns tense when his wife, Ashton, shows him a pile of bills stacked up on the kitchen counter, causing the smile on his face to fade. Ashton is worried about how the family will manage under the financial pressure, but Jake reassures her in a firm tone, insisting that they will get through it, just like they always have. To lighten the tense atmosphere, he humorously grabs a piece of chicken and runs off, causing the whole family to burst into laughter. The next morning, at the shop, Jake unexpectedly faces the Mexican gangsters to whom Earl owes money. The confrontation quickly escalates when Fresh, the gang leader, orders his men to attack Jake, turning an ordinary workday into chaos and danger. Jake quickly fought back, taking down each man with skill and decisiveness. However, before he could reach Fresh, the gang leader drew a gun, forcing Jake to stop. Fresh stared at him coldly, threatening to return before leaving with his men. After the incident, Jake confronted Earl, furious about the danger he had been unknowingly dragged into. Faced with the criticism, Earl admitted that he had once been part of that gang, but he was lucky to escape and rebuild his life, owning a house that he could now proudly call his home. Jake was troubled, the worry about his family's safety weighing heavily on his mind. Although Earl tried to reassure him, insisting that he would do whatever it takes to protect the neighborhood, Jake couldn't shake the feeling of unease. That fateful night arrived. Fresh appeared, coldly declaring that it was a time for revenge. In a panic, Jake rushed into the house, hoping to salvage something. Instead, he was met with a horrific scene. His beloved family had been murdered. Heart-wrenching screams echoed through the night, blending with pain and despair as Jake collapsed, holding on to the irreplaceable loss. Soon after, the police arrived at the scene, trying to calm Jake down and talk to him. But overwhelmed by rage and grief, he lost all sense of reason. Ignoring all advice, Jake jumped into his car and set out on a relentless hunt for Fresh. It didn't take long for him to spot Fresh's car parked outside a club. Determined to seek revenge, Jake stormed in, coldly killing each gang member without hesitation. When he finally confronted Fresh, ready to end his life, Fresh begged and explained that he had no choice but to act that way. But Jake was unmoved by his desperate pleas. Without a second thought, he pulled the trigger, ending Fresh's life with utter coldness. Months passed, and Jake sat in prison, serving time for the crimes he had committed. The death of his family still haunted him, and the memories of the past continuously caused him pain. One day, Mason came to visit, offering to help him with his case. But Jake firmly insisted that he deserved the punishment for what he had done. Mason tried to comfort him, but all his words seemed meaningless when Jake bluntly admitted that he had killed them without any remorse, and if necessary, he would do it again without hesitation. The conversation ended when Jake coldly demanded that Mason never come back. Not long after, an unexpected visitor arrived. Ramsey, the leader of a private special forces team. Jake quickly dismissed him before Ramsey had the chance to explain why he was there. That night, masked men stealthily infiltrated Jake's cell and kidnapped him. Within minutes, Ramsey appeared, revealing that it was he and his team who were behind the abduction. Ramsey announced that he had been monitoring Jake for a long time and was highly impressed with his record. He then presented a choice: continue to rot in prison or start a new life by joining his special forces team. After a moment of reflection, Jake decided to shed his past and chose the path of becoming a hero once again by joining a secret government agency known as Section 8. In Washington, D.C., Ramsey officially introduced Jake to the members of the team Elias, Dodjax, Bronner and Mueller, while also briefing him on their mission and work. During this time, Jake discreetly took a pen from a nearby desk before being led into another room. Ramsey continued to explain that Jake's true identity had been erased and that he would be given a new alias along with an entirely new backstory. As Ramsey left, the team began Jake's training process. Ajax immediately provoked Jake, stirring up trouble and setting the stage for a confrontation. Jake initially hesitated, but then decided to fight back, nearly stabbing himself in the eye with the pen. A memory of his family stealthily resurfaced in his mind, helping him regain his composure just in time. Shortly after Jake was assigned to Dean's first mission with Mueller, she summarized their target. Alejandro Castillo, a defense contractor and arms dealer on the black market, was the target they needed to deal with. Mueller explained to Jake that their mission was to retrieve a file containing important blueprints and eliminate Alejandro before he could sell them to the Russians. Upon arriving in Mexico, they discovered Castillo was in a warehouse meeting Johnny, a Russian negotiator, to make the deal. As the conversation unfolded, Jake quietly skillfully taking down a guard without making a sound. The sudden noise drew the group's attention, causing them to turn and confront each other. The misunderstanding quickly escalated into a shootout, and Jake seized the opportunity, silently eliminating the surviving enemies. He then took down Castillo, retrieved the important files, and left, leaving behind 2 innocent women as the only survivors. Upon returning to base, Ramsey criticized Jake for compromising the mission's integrity by leaving survivors, violating protocol. Ramsey then threatened to send Jake back to prison if he didn't follow the rules. Jake was dismissed and Mueller gave her assessment of his performance. She praised Jake's efforts, but Ramsey was not satisfied with that. The next day, Locke quickly infiltrated a hotel to eliminate a target connected to Ramsey. The man tried to bribe Locke, but he didn't let it affect his decision. As a result, the target was still killed. While leaving, the guards became suspicious and chased after him, but he easily subdued the authorities and escaped in a stolen car. Meanwhile, Jake moved into a new house. While unpacking, he discovered a photo from his time in Afghanistan, which reminded him of his conversation with Mason. Jake blamed himself for causing harm to Mason, but Mason's wise words helped ease his guilt. Mueller later found Jake in a bar, where they shared drinks and gradually bonded. Jake, curious about Ramsey, asked her about the commander, but she claimed not to know anything about him. Instead, he turned to ask about her past. Mueller shared that she had served in the military but was reprimanded for punching a commanding officer. Soon after, Ramsey called them back to brief them on their new mission. The target of the mission is State Senator Jim Graham. Their job is to gather digital information related to a sensitive case and eliminate the target. Ramsey assigns Mueller the task of recovering the files, while Jake will monitor the target. The rest will be handled by the backup team. He emphasizes that security will be tightened to ensure the mission's success. With signs of a counterattack looming, the team decides to disguise themselves as gardeners when they arrive in California. Mueller quickly takes down the guards in the room, but this is sure to trigger an alarm, affecting their plan. Once their cover is blown, Jake chases after Graham, while Mueller continues working on the files. In the end, Jake corners Graham, but hesitates when he hears him explain that he has a family. Unfortunately, Ajax managed to catch up with them and immediately eliminated Graham. That night, Jake was haunted by Graham's words and couldn't stop thinking about his wife. However, because of his hesitation, he had now become a target of Section 8. Masked men broke into his house to hunt him down, but fortunately he managed to escape. He then sought out Mason, and they talked about the Section 8 organization. Mason warned that if Jake became a fugitive, he would face a lot of trouble. So Jake asked Mason to help him borrow money and provide him with a gun so he could escape. When he returned to Riverside, Jake received information from his son's best friend that, before his family was murdered, Fresh had been seen with a group of people wearing suits. However, just as Jake was about to learn more, Locke appeared and intervened, ending everything by killing that friend. Jake narrowly escaped death as Locke slaughtered everyone in his path, including the police. Afterward, Locke contacted Ramsey, informing him that he had lost track of Jake. However, Ramsey provoked him, pushing Locke to make finding Jake his top priority. Later that same day, the Section 8 team discovered Jake at Earl's shop. Determined to protect his life, Jake fought fiercely with Elias and Brunner, eventually taking them down. However, Ajax proved to be a formidable opponent, nearly gaining the upper hand and almost stabbing Jake. Fortunately, Muller arrived just in time and shot Ajax dead. After the fight, Earl quickly handed Jake the car keys and urged him to leave before the police arrived. In the car, Muller and Jake argued, their disagreement stemming from a lack of trust in each other. Jake asked where Ramsey was, wanting to end everything once and for all. They arrived in Montana, where Ramsey planned to meet with some senators. The two tried to sneak into the cabin, but Jake was knocked unconscious. When he woke up, he found himself tied to a chair with Ramsey standing in front of him and Muller by his side. Ramsey revealed that it had all been a trap and they had prepared a surprise for him. The door opened, and Tom walked into the room, leaving Jake stunned by his unexpected appearance. However, Jake's questions were quickly answered when they admitted that they were the ones who had killed his family, seeing it as a waste of his talent. After handing the money to Ramsey, Tom asked for permission to leave, allowing Muller to check the money. Tom then quietly returned to the room and freed Jake. He revealed the truth that he had signed a contract to take down Section 8. Immediately, alarms rang out, signaling the arrival of Ramsey's men. Despite being outnumbered, the pair quickly defeated them. When they cornered Ramsey, Jake clearly stated that he wanted to see him pay with his life. Ramsey tried to deceive Jake, cleverly turning him against Tom, but Jake didn't believe him. As Muller sneaked up to shoot Jake, Tom lunged forward, taking a bullet for him and sacrificing himself. At that moment, Ramsey quickly fled while Muller faced Jake. Although Muller initially had the upper hand, after a brief struggle, Jake turned the tables, regained control, and ended it by killing her. Jake chased after Ramsey, and in the end, Ramsey ran into an oncoming car. Jake approached the wrecked vehicle, where Ramsey was injured, and condemned him for his hesitation. Before Ramsey could say anything else, Jake ended it with a single shot. Afterwards, Jake met with Addie, General Savoy, who offered him a new job and a clean record. He also revealed that Tom had been working for them, but Jake declined the offer, stating that he had nothing left to fight for. Savoy understood and still handed Jake his business card, but Jake had no intention of accepting it. He then returned home, where Locke was waiting for him. Determined to finish the job without Ramsey, they engaged in a fierce battle. Although Locke initially had the upper hand, Jake turned the tide, seized the gun, and took Locke down. The film ends with Jake leaving a voicemail for Earl, thanking him for saving his life, just as his father had once saved him. The film ends with Earl getting emotional and Jake on the bus calling Savoy, who welcomes him into Section 9. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button, and if you don't like it, you can hit the dislike button twice, just to be for the full experience. Watch the entire film. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this.